Hey everybody, welcome to Cloud Guts. We're here today. This is Liore Shai, Solutions Architect from Eon, and we're joined by Roy Hasson from Microsoft. And we're going to be discussing today. I'm sorry, Roy Hasson, Senior Director of Product at Microsoft. He's on Microsoft Fabric and, of course, doing amazing things there. And what we're going to be discussing today is activating backup data using Microsoft Fabric. So really what we're going to be looking at is how Eon, right? Eon is obviously a cloud backup, right? Cloud infrastructure backup and data protection solution actually enables you to back up your data. And in partnership with Microsoft Fabric, we're enabling you to turn your backup data into an actual data lake, right? So without the need for a separate ETL pipeline or anything like that. And so Roy is going to really be discussing with us how Fabric is enabling these types of workflows for customers. So Roy, I'm going to pass it on to you. And what we'll do is we'll also, share, right, so we can visualize a little bit of what Roy's kind of talking about here. So yeah, please
Awesome.
take it away.
All right, thank you, Leo. I appreciate it. Thanks everybody for joining us too. I think this is a really exciting topic that doesn't really often get a lot of coverage. Before we get started, I kind of want to set the stage, right? I think the problem that we're seeing in the market today is that there's a lot of AI, there's a lot of analytics, and a lot of these advanced use cases that companies are just trying to deliver. And I think we've heard this over and over again, where data is at the root of much of these initiatives. And for them to be successful, we need the latest and greatest and the most accurate data. And when we talk to leaders in the industry, both in enterprises, but also vendors who are building these tools, we see that a large number of these leaders are saying that unifying their data platform for analytics and AI is really the most crucial and important aspect of their data strategy. Right? They realize that they can't have silos, they can't have data scattered everywhere. That putting it in a single place to make it accessible is really, really important. And that even a small percentage, like 10% bump in the usability and accessibility of the data can actually deliver much higher revenues, which is a really, really big deal. And this is really why, we kind of build Microsoft Fabric. So next slide, please. So when you look at Microsoft Fabric is a wide but very vertically integrated platform that does a few things. The first thing is it brings it and it unifies all of the data in one lake. So it puts all your data in one place. And then the second thing is it brings a set of tools and capabilities that allow you to take advantage of that data to both do data processing, to do analytics and queries, to run your operational business, right? Your apps through databases that are tied back into the analytics stack. So you don't have to build any extra ETL and data processing pipelines. Everything is already wired and connected for you, so it just works. And then real time, as you start moving towards real time type of use cases, whether you're in IoT or autonomous vehicles, maybe you're not, but you're still going to start leveraging real time. And we see real time becoming a true component of the platform when we start looking at AI, recommendations and ChatGPT type of use cases or Copilot type of use cases where you need the latest and greatest information as quickly as possible so you can actually use it. So that's kind of the platform. So it has a lot of capabilities. But then when you double click into that and you say, okay, great, it's a data platform. There's lots of them on the market today that are integrated and do well. But what's really unique about Fabric? What's really unique about Fabric is its ecosystem. So first of all, the Microsoft ecosystem, both on the Azure side, where you can tie into OpenAI services, AI Foundry, which has lots of AI capabilities, even Microsoft 365, right? How do you connect your Excel that everybody in your organization uses to the data that you're storing and unifying inside of Fabric? It's all built into the platform. Teams, Outlook, PowerPoint, Copilot, everything is tied together. And then, Microsoft Dynamics 365 for your planning and financial planning and things like that, but also the Power Platform that take advantage of this data for Power BI and all those capabilities, as well as the third-party ecosystem that continues to grow with partners like SAP and Salesforce and Databricks and ServiceNow and lots more. And of course, Eon being part of that. But those are all tools and capabilities that create the ecosystem and take full advantage of the platform. So it's not an island where you have a platform that just does really good stuff. It's an ecosystem where you have things that tie together. Next
Absolutely.
slide. So when you double click into the unification of the data part, right? There's a component inside of Fabric called OneLake, and you can think of OneLake as a storage SaaS, right? Storage software as a service that handles all of the data. And the beauty about OneLake is that it sort of looks at the entire requirement. It says, I'm going to try to solve all these problems so you don't have to do a lot of extra heavy lifting to do it. So for example, we have automatic zero ETL mirroring from a lot of popular databases. So instead of creating ETL jobs and doing data injection and those kind of things, it just flip a switch and data automatically streams from your database into OneLake. We also, on the right side, we have a lot of open APIs. So we use Apache Iceberg standard APIs and other standard APIs to be able to integrate with lots of other tools like Databricks and Snowflake and open source tools like Spark and Trino, so that you can read and write with OneLake as you normally do. But under the covers, OneLake manages the data as tables. So you don't have to know, oh, is this kind of file or that kind of file. Everything is managed as either a Delta Lake or an Iceberg table. And OneLake does the interoperability between the formats automatically. So as a user, you don't need to make a choice whether I pick this format or that format. You just write one and OneLake just deals with the rest. And then on top of that, it's all the Fabric ecosystem engines that we talked a little bit about before, like Data Factory for ETLing, real-time for real-time processing and analytics, databases, data engineering, warehousing, et cetera, as well as partner solutions, right? So if it's Snowflake or Databricks or Dremio or some of these others, they can access the data. Now, one of the things that's really unique about OneLake that you don't see with other solutions on the market is the idea of multi-cloud shortcuts. You can see that on the bottom of the picture, where today we have shortcuts that are available for Azure. So if you already have data in ADLS Gen 2, you can shortcut, you can link it into OneLake. Dataverse, we have Google GCS, Amazon S3, S3 compatible. So if you have an on-prem environment like NetApp, that's S3 compatible, you can connect to that. And what shortcuts really do is actually let you create a link to an external data store without moving any data. Only when you query it do you move the data. But one thing that's really missing for us here is these database backups. Now, we know with a lot of our customers, both on Azure, but also on other clouds, is that database backup is a requirement for every database, every organization. If you're not doing it, you're gonna hurt yourself in the future. But these database backups are just there. They're just sitting dormant in case something happens. But what if you wanted to take a real advantage of them, right? And that's the thing that we're really excited about to talk to you today is the ability to actually create a shortcut from OneLake to this database backup that resides either in ADLS, in AWS S3, in GCS, wherever your database resides through the Eon integration. So if you go to the next slide, I think that's a good transition to kind of to move over to Liore to talk about how Eon extends the Fabric vision to unify the data through this shortcut integration that we built. Take it away.
Yeah, absolutely, Roy. And it's a really, really great overview of what you guys have built with Fabric. Really impressive. And obviously, it's following the trend that we're seeing across all of our customers, which is unifying data right into one location and basically being able to include right your entire corpus of data, not needing to just because something is a legacy database running in some on-premises location doesn't mean that you can't include that right within your entire data set and get the most value possible out of your organization's data. So let's look at how Eon is helping customers achieve that along with right our partners, much like Fabric and OneLake. So a couple of things to know about Eon. Obviously, if we're talking about Eon as a backup solution, right, is that we're changing the way that you really would think about your cloud infrastructure backup. So assuming, right, you're running on Azure, maybe you have, also some AWS and Google Cloud resources as well. We're really kind of making it possible to actually get value out of your database and cloud infrastructure backups, right? Because we're talking about databases as a form of structured data, but this really applies also to backups of object storage like blob storage, to backups of virtual machines, right? Whether they're running SQL, whether they're running Postgres, MySQL, or another database engine or application. So really what we're doing is enabling you to actually access the data that's locked in those snapshots, right, of your backups. We make it really, really easy to achieve compliance and automation in your backup solution. So let's say if you have, a couple hundred Azure subscriptions and a couple hundred Google Cloud projects or AWS accounts, it gets really, really, streamlined process to actually getting your organization into a compliant state with data protection. But on top of that, right, all of those backups that you now have running are going to be able to be analyzed using data analytics stacks, right? Much like Fabric and OneLake. And we'll see that in just a second. And of course, it's helping our customers achieve, right, a lower total cost of ownership for their solution. So we think about backups, right? Backups are something where they're essentially an insurance policy, right? In the case that you have, a catastrophic data loss, whether it's from a misconfiguration in the cloud or from a bad actor, you want the ability to recover that data. That can be a really expensive, right, proposition, a really expensive insurance policy. And one of the things that we're helping our customers do is be able to actually get value out of that data, right? So that's data that's being moved and stored in redundant storage. You might as well, right, be able to actually leverage that data for AI use cases, for analytics, and for other compliance use cases. And then finally, right, the ability to actually have a full ransomware resilient backup solution. One of the things we help our customers with in the cloud is our backups are air gapped and immutable by default. And so it helps our customers get onboarded, right, with a data protection solution where you have that enabled out of the box. But let's zoom in on the data lake concept a little bit. So we've been talking about this concept of how until today, right, we look at backup data as essentially a really expensive insurance policy. But one of the things that, Fabric and OneLake and these types of ecosystems are making possible is we can all of a sudden bring in data sources that we might not have even realized are possible to analyze alongside, right, the rest of our organization's data and actually turn them into, right, part of a data lake. So the way that we do that at Eon is with our Eon storage tier. And I think like Roy mentioned, right, our actual backups are stored on, the object storage providers of the major hyperscalers. So of course, in the case of Azure, it's on Blob, right? So the actual backup data, whether it's a SQL database on VM or Azure SQL, or it's another type of application running on Azure VM, or it's blob storage, or another service, all of those are going to be normalized and stored in the Eon storage tier in Azure Blob Storage, or in the other cloud providers' object storage. Now, the benefit of our storage tier, aside from just storing efficiently, right? So being able to lower the actual footprint of data that are stored in the backups by compression and deduplication, is the ability to also actually enable customers to get insights into the data. So what that means is when we actually go and back up all of these data sources for our customers, at the same time, we're able to provide data classification, we're able to provide ransomware detection, and we're also able to actually index and store the data in a format where it's going to be queryable. And so that's really what we want to demonstrate to you today. I think what we're going to do is actually show how we enable that flow by partnering with Fabric and OneLake. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch gears right now, and actually we're going to take a look at the Eon platform and actually see what it looks like to turn your backups into a usable data lake. We have a demo that we've prepared, and essentially what we see here, this is the Eon platform. And so what we're seeing is this is Eon's inventory screen. So you see resources from across multiple cloud providers, and Eon is going to automatically discover resources. So these are databases, virtual machines, object storage, And we see we have Azure resources, but also some AWS and Google Cloud. And the nice thing about the way that Eon works is without installing any virtual appliance or agents on virtual machines or anything like that, you're able to discover and back up resources across your environment in a completely cloud native fashion. And like you see here, right, I can, for example, use a tag and filter across multiple different clouds, multiple regions, multiple services, and have that insight into, what applications are running on the VM. Do I have persistent data on the machine, or sensitive data on the machine? And so just to take a look at that, right, you could do the traditional idea of, look at my backup snapshots. I can click on them and recover them, right? If it's a full resource recovery into a cloud account, or if it's, just recovering a particular volume or something like that. So all of that is possible, right? Just like you would do with the traditional backup. But we want to also take note of the introspection capability. So you might have noticed there was PII detected on this resource. So Eon is actually able to tell you not just within a database, but also which table and which column, right, sensitive data was detected. So we actually give you that insight beyond just the cloud snapshot, and we do it without copying any data and without the need to do any type of agent or appliance in your own environment. So you'll see here we're able to actually explore the database. This allows us to go and actually look at and run a query against the Eon storage tier, right? So when we think about this, we're able to go and for this particular database, which we see as a MySQL, right, running on a VM, I'm able to choose a particular point in time of that snapshot. So I can go and select that. And then I'm able to actually go and run a query. And so this query on the customers table that I'm running, right, this is using Eon to run a query directly against the Eon storage tier, which is an object storage, right? So what that means is the MySQL database engine is not the one that's processing this query. It's actually running, and depending on which cloud provider, right, we're going to go and hit the actual object storage bucket, and the results are going to be sent into object storage in our customer's environment. So this could be done right through Eon console or via our REST API. But what if we want to go and do this, right, using a data lake integration? So here's where the Eon data catalog comes in. So what you see here is this is a data catalog view of different databases that we have, in this Eon instance. And in this case, we're able to actually go and explore the schema, right, of the different resources. So in this case, we see, an RDS. And within RDS, if I look at a particular table, I can see information about the table, and Eon is actually able to present me information about inferred joinability. Now, this is really critical because of Eon sitting at this kind of nexus of the data, right, backing up data every day, we're able to give you this insight and say, okay, here's these different columns that exist within this table. They actually might be joinable, right? There's a 78% match in this case with another table that exists within your Eon backups. So this is a feature that's really critical for our customers because we're enabling you to infer joinability between different data sources that might not be in the same region, in the same cloud, and they might not even be the same database type, right? So you can get these insights that are really difficult to get otherwise. And you could imagine, in this case, right, we were looking at the joinability between a set of logs, right? These were cloud logs as well as an RDS database. What if we want to do that in Fabric? So the way that we actually go and perform that integration is using our connections. So here we're able to see them in the Eon catalog. Let's actually go and look at what connecting that looks like. So in this case, we're obviously interested in our Fabric integration. And the way that that works is we actually set up an integration, right, with Fabric at the tenant and workspace level. And then once we set that up, we're able to actually configure what we call an Eon bridges. And a bridge is essentially going to be synchronizing data between a table or set of tables with Fabric, right? And so once we configure that, we're able to say, I want to make sure that this set of tables is going to be available to me in Fabric for data analytics purposes. And the really critical thing here, like Roy was mentioning before, is this leverages the capabilities of Fabric. So data does not need to be copied, right? So you don't need a separate ETL process in order to analyze this data. It's kept in sync as a shortcut within Fabric, and that can be monitored, of course, through Eon. But the really important point to remember is that when we think about that Fabric integration, you set it up once, you choose, right, which snapshots, like if you want the latest backup snapshot, and then we can move over to Fabric. So within Fabric, we essentially see now we have tables within our OneLake here that we're able to actually go and use just like you would use any other data source, right, within the platform. So the benefit here is, again, like I see the preview of the data. I did not need to copy over any data, right? So this data is still sitting in my Eon backups, right? I have this app sessions table or customers table. So that customers table that we queried before, I could query now within Fabric using, right, a regular T-SQL query like I would do anything else here, right? So in this case, I can run that query where I try to get, right, 100 results from the customers table. And that's great, right? I'm able to go ahead and run this query. And again, this data that's coming back, I want to stress it again, I don't need a separate ETL pipeline. So this is coming straight from my Eon backup storage. And so this is great that I have this insight and I'm able to run a query, but what about being able to do the joins between, different data sets? So one thing I want to highlight here is, and this is a really cool thing that I found about, Fabric specifically, is the integration with Copilot. So you might have noticed that we exported a bunch of tables, right? And we set up a bridge between Eon and Fabric. So I can actually leverage Copilot to use that context and help me generate a query that'll give me analysis across multiple data sources. So in this case, right, which states are driving the most revenue? And we can group that by, transaction amount. So we can say which states have the highest transaction amounts. And the cool thing about this is, right, we have this context where we know about the different tables from Eon, and we can actually write queries that, in this case, like you see, this is taking it from not just the customers table that we saw, but also the transactions table as well. And so these are actually two tables. One of them is in Azure and one of them is in Google Cloud. And we're able to run a query and do a join across them. And here we can see, right, which states are driving the most revenue, right, sorted by revenue descending. So this is some really impressive stuff that I think a lot of our customers didn't even know was possible before. And another aspect of it is you saw that joinability that we can infer in Eon because we're sitting at that, central point where backups are being performed. Well, you can use that information to automatically generate, right, a semantic model that can be used with Power BI. So in this case, these are those tables that we've imported into Fabric, and we have those relationships between them. One of the amazing things is now I can use the semantic model, right, to build dashboards in Power BI. And so this, I think it just goes to show, and I'm sure like as Roy knows, right, the power of this kind of ecosystem where we have these data sources that are not even, right, we didn't have to copy over any data, but now I have an auto-generated dashboard leveraging Power BI that is enabled by the fact that, right, I'm able to use those Fabric shortcuts and then actually query my backup data and build this. So again, this is data off of multiple database backups that I have in Eon, and within Fabric, I'm able to build this analytics use case out of it. So we'll stop there for a second, but I hope that was interesting. We, what we're going to do, and Roy, I'd love to get your opinion on this kind of stuff, because this is something that our customers have been really, especially users of Fabric, really impressed by the ability to actually go and start to query across multiple data sets without the need to move any data around, obviously.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. And I think the demo really did a lot of justice to kind of show the capabilities. And I think that's really the power here. And I think if we kind of summarize it as you brought up the slide, right? I mean, it's really about making things simple and cost effective, right? So you have a data asset, right? The backups that you're already paying for, you're already doing, but you're not taking advantage of it today. So being able to bring it into the fold and be able to start using it for analytics and for AI without doing any extra work, no ETL, no data pipelines, no data engineering at all is a massive, massive win. And then on top of that, you're saving costs. Like you're not replicating data from your database again to bring it into the warehouse to do analytics on it. You're just using data that you already backed up and you're just reusing it. So you're cutting down your costs. And then ultimately you're unifying all your data. So that's the acceleration of analytics and AI and kind of what I talked about in the first slide. So I think overall I'm really excited about the partnership. I think this integration makes a ton of sense, and we're starting to see a lot of interest from customers. And I think longer term this is a staple in our ecosystem.
Absolutely, yeah. And I just wanted to say, I was looking, we had some really great questions come up in the
Yeah.
chat. So if it's okay with you, or I can bring up a couple of the
Yeah,
questions.
jump right in.
Some of them might be for me, some of them might be for you. So the first one that I'll answer is about so from Amit about is the Eon backup is created, in our object storage, and I assume, right, thinking about like the customer's object storage. I would say in for most of our customers, right, that are looking for an air-gapped cloud backup, Eon will provide a single tenant, cloud account. So whether it's an Azure subscription or Google Cloud project, Eon will essentially provision a cloud account and manage the object storage for the customer in order to achieve an air-gapped backup. But we also support customers hosting their own object storage backup as well. And then I think we also had a customer, another question, I'm sorry, Roy, about if Fabric itself can
Yeah.
handle the data storage.
Yeah, I answered that in the Q&A part as well, but just to kind of reiterate that.
Mhm.
So Fabric, like I said in the beginning, it's two pieces. Fabric is the engine, and there's also OneLake, which is the storage. In
Mhm.
OneLake, you can read and write both Iceberg and Delta. And behind the scenes, we have an automatic mechanisms that converts between the formats, right? So
Mhm.
if your engine can only write Iceberg, but you have another engine that can only read Delta, we just convert automatically. You don't have to do anything. It's completely automatic. The Fabric engines today, like the Warehouse and Spark and some of those tools, today only support Delta. But we're working on extending that to support Iceberg as well. But regardless of that, OneLake manages the conversion between them. So again, if for example, I think there was a question in the beginning, where like, hey, you're connecting to a Delta table,
Mhm.
let's say in S3, for example, connecting an Iceberg table in S3, for example, but your engine querying that shortcut is a Delta engine. Well, OneLake does the conversion for you, so you don't have to worry about it. You can just keep doing what you're doing, and then OneLake and Fabric will just deal with the rest.
Absolutely. Okay. Oh, and I do appreciate that. I see that the Q&A tab as well. So
Yeah.
just to capture one more is about how often these backups are synced to Eon. And so that's from for Kavya. And I think for Kavya, to answer your question, that's completely configurable by the user, which is, if you decide to have, let's say if you have a daily snapshot running and you want to synchronize daily, then that can be done. And the other thing is you can also choose, right, whether you want to bring all points in time and then send those over, or just the latest snapshot. So a lot of times customers will opt to have the latest backup snapshot be what
Yeah.
is synchronized in there. And then the last thing that I'll kind of answer is we had a question about if customers pay for object storage for the catalogs being stored, and I think that was from Brian earlier. And just to kind of clarify on that, Eon charges for backup storage, right? So one of the things that's really nice is it's about the actual data storage that the backup consumes. So there's not like any kind of separate fee for the catalog functionality that we saw in the demo there. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you everybody. Really appreciate all
Yeah.
the Q&A.
Yeah, some
And
good questions.
yeah, it's been great. So thanks a lot. And if you have any other questions, please get in touch with us and we'll definitely follow up since you're signed up for the webinar here. Really appreciate all the engagement and have a great day.
Yep. Thank you so
Bye.
much.
Yeah.